I'm moderating this session, so you can be sure we'll do it in 30 minutes. We're going to take this as fast as possible. It's very, very important, but we also need to manage our time. And so without further ado, we're going to be going into the next session. And it's interesting because we're going to be talking about something that I know a lot of us are very keen to know. Since I came in here today, I've been talking about migration. And now we want to go into the meat of it. In this particular session, we're going to be looking at intra-Africa travel, lowering the barriers that impede migration, tourism, and trade in Africa. I'd introduced her before, but I'm going to be calling her upstage right now for us to discuss and share thoughts quickly before we also go into the next session. It's a working day and everyone is really eager. I've been hearing things about they want to go to another meeting, another engagement, and all of that. So we'll try and manage this as quickly as we can. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome to the stage the Deputy Chief of Mission, International Organization for Migration in Nigeria, Paola. Pace. Put your hands together as she comes on stage. Please celebrate her. Thank you. To speak any of the seats. Good. So I'm calling on another very gorgeous and great achiever. This woman, without a doubt, have done a great job since you assumed presidency of the National Association of Nigeria Travel Agency in Nigeria. Please help me welcome to the stage Mrs. Susan Akporiaye, President of NANTA, able, capable president. Thank you. Celebrate her as she comes on stage. Thank you so much. Thank you. I was thinking I was going to be sitting just with the ladies, but there's a gentleman who usually would always make this difficult for me to do. He would always come in when he sees that I am sitting between the ladies. Please help me welcome to the stage the president of SKAL Lagos, Mr. Ademola Sanya. My president, sir. Where are you, sir? Please celebrate him. As it comes on stage to join. Thank you so much. All right. You don't have to sit down. We'll do this, like I said, in 30 minutes. We'll try as much as possible to bring knowledge, thoughts on board and do it in record time. There's some side talk here. Don't worry, we won't share it with you. The ones we want you to hear, you will hear. Now, we're going to be looking at lowering the barriers that impede migration, tourism, and trade in Africa. So I'm going to start with you, madam. Without a doubt, since you assumed office, you have not only done a great job, steering the ship of NANTA in Nigeria, but you've championed and organized and done a lot of meetings and events outside of Nigeria. In your opinion, what are the things that we're presently doing wrong that is impeding the travel or our movement in Africa? And this is from the presidential table. And there's a way, the president people will talk there easier on some of those things that we need to do better so that we can move more amongst ourselves and we can then achieve that Africa, that very seamless Africa that we all desire. You have the floor.
Okay. Good morning. When I came in as president, I came in during the COVID 2020, and we were on lockdown. That was when the journey, almost as if the Intra-Africa discussion stepped up again. I use the word again. It was there before, we all forgot about it. Until COVID happened, we picked it up again. And my prayer is we shouldn't forget about it again. As the momentum picked up during COVID, it should continue. Because during COVID, Africa never shut down to itself. It was one continent that did not shut down. But every other continent shut down to Africa. But guess what? We're strangers to ourselves. So there was no advantage of the fact that Africa did not shut down to itself. Because we're strangers. During the COVID, there was a lot of engagement. I engaged a lot of African Tourism Board on webinars. Then when the movement started, we embarked on a journey. And I realized that one of the major things, I know visa is an issue. It cannot be overflowed. We talked about it over and over again. I'm not going to talk about that. I just want to say something here. Let's not also forget that countries try to profit on this visa thing. So that's another major reason why they will not take it away. Because when the president of Kenya first made the announcement, he said visa free for Africa. Visa free means you don't pay for anything. As if you do, the way you travel from Abuja to Lagos is how you go to Rwanda. To Rwanda, because they are the only ones that have done visa free. Visa on arrival, you pay. It's just that you pay when you get there. So there are two different things. Visa free, visa on arrival. Visa free, you don't pay anything. Rwanda, you don't pay anything. So when the Kenyan president initially announced, he announced visa free. Some months after, I can almost guess what happened. His members of the team say, President, are you crazy? Do you know the amount of money you make on visas from Nigerians? Should we give you the budget and let you know the money we make from Nigerians? Why will you say visa free? No, let's do visa on arrival or e-visa. And the language changed. It became e-visa. So for Kenya, you have to pay visa. It's just that you don't go to the embassy and submit document. But we still pay for visa. So the only visa-free country is Rwanda. So in as much as we talk about visa restriction, personally to me, it's the gain that the country are making, especially from us Nigerians, because travel is in our DNA. You can't stop us from traveling. We all know what's happening right now with the airfares. Nigerians are unstoppable. I don't know how they do it. Don't ask me. But Nigerians are just unstoppable. We just love to travel. That's the only thing I will say about visa. It's a food for thought. Let's think about it. Countries are making serious money on visas from us. Then another thing I realized, talking about the Intra-Africa travel, is when we engage on those webinars, that was why when movement started, I launched an international travel and tourism conference for the African market. That's the African travel and tour professionals. Was because I realized that with the professionals, we are like the doctors that people come to consult when it has to do with travels. And I found out that most of us don't know the continent of Africa. I will say it because they said leadership by example. I always like using myself as an example. Please don't judge me because I've judged myself severally on that issue. I traveled to Accra for the first time in my life. I have been traveling as far back as when I was in primary school, all over the world before I became a travel agent. But I traveled for the first time in my life to Accra in 2018. Please do not judge me, but that is the truth. First time in my life to Accra, next door. So I realized that it's because we don't know the continent. Visa is one thing, connectivity is another big challenge, but at least let's start with the low-hanging fruits. It's not every destination in Africa that is difficult to go to. So I found out that it's because we really don't know the continent. I engaged my members and I found out it's the same issue. We don't know the continent. So we embarked on, okay, we are the professionals. We are the ones that people will consult. When somebody comes to my office, is Africa the first thing on my mind to recommend? If it's not, then there is a problem. So we started that conference, and it's meant for African travel professionals to travel within Africa to discover the continent of Africa. Because as for we in NANTA, we always say we sell better what we have experienced. You can come and show me all the beautiful slides, everything, and I in turn go and show my clients. And my client get there and say, you deceived me. Those things were not what you showed me. So we sell better what we have experienced. God so kind, this technology now, we have travel bloggers as part of NANTA members. We have travel gurus, travel tech gurus. So they document their experiences live on social media platform. That sells better than just putting random pictures anywhere. So my own take on this Intra-Africa thing is, how well do we know the African continent for us to decide to travel within Africa? How well do we know it? Know it as they know it, that you can recommend it. So that should be the first call. That every one of us should make it a point of duty to begin to experience the continent of Africa. Like I said, there are low-hanging fruits. We will start from the one that is easy. And the conference started with South Africa, and we're going to start moving. It's going to be moving from one African country to another. I was telling somebody, even if an American organization comes to NANTA, and says, you know what, I'll give you $1 billion. Bring this conference to America. I'm going to tell them no. Because the conference is targeted for the travel professionals to discover their continent, the wealth in their continent, so that we keep it within the continent. Thank you.
Thank you so much. How well do we know Africa? Let's celebrate our place. Okay, Paola. Now, talking about knowing Africa and knowing what we do. So when you say migration, the first thing that crosses your mind is the man is running, the man is jackparing. Now tell us or talk to us about the gains or the good around migration and what your organization is doing so that we all can understand this better and be able to treat migration better than we're treating it right now.
Sure. Thank you very much, MC, and thank you also, Tony, for the invitation. And I'm very grateful and humbled to be surrounded by Africa lover, because I'm also one. I'm an Afro-European, like they called me the first time I landed on the continent in 2007 in Djibouti, and since then I've lived in various African countries, from east to southern to north to west. So migration, if we do an experiment, if you click the word migrant, you take whatever tool on your devices, you can take your phone and you click the word migrants, you'll see only picture of despair. So an invasion, huge numbers. That's not what the reality of migration nowadays is. And Africa has not tapped into potential of migration as yet. Is not among the top continent in terms of internal movement, which starts with the visa, with the entry, but then continues with the staying longer term until you get permanent residentship, naturalize, get the second nationality, considering also the fact that in many African countries, second nationality is not allowed. Recently, we had a visit of a neighboring country in Southern Africa that was coming to see also how to engage more their diaspora within the continent and beyond. And the first thing I asked them, have you changed your nationality law? They haven't. And we have worked with them for the last 20 years towards that. And this is an issue because you have a number of African nationals who have gone within the countries or beyond, who they have acquired nationality where they are, and then if they want to come back for business, for shorter term, longer term, they have to apply for visa. They have difficulties even to re-enter their homeland, their own continent. So migration is a phenomenon. It's not a problem, has always existed, will always exist. Migration is mostly internal migration. So people coming, I don't know, someone from Edo State come to Lagos for study, for work, for family unity, for whatever purposes. So the majority of migrants are internal migrants, 763 million people, internal migrants. Among them, you have also those who are forced to leave their land, and that's unfortunately the case in the north, east center of Nigeria because of the insurgency, floods, banditry, other reason why people have to leave their habitual place of residence. International migration is smaller. Those who really establish themselves outside their country represent 3.6% of the population globally, not enormously. The majority of those migrating internationally are Europeans within Europe. So Europe is the continent together with Asia. Sometimes they compete with each other. Some years ago was Asia the continent where people move more to reside mostly within the same continent. Africa, it's not among the continents where people move, and that's exactly, to love you need to know, you need to travel, you need to also start from the school. We were talking with MC just before, so we need to know the continent, we need to teach the continent. As I am in Africa for the last 15 years, I had my daughter grow up in the continent, and she has been in schools in various countries in the continent, and she has studied much more the history of Europe or other things, not the history of Africa. And when students, for example, have exercise in terms of like finding pen friends and so on, they would look pen friends from another continent. Or thinking about a trip, again, a trip not to Accra from Nigeria, but to somewhere else. So we need to really reflect on that. So migration is not a problem, it's a phenomenon. Yes, migrants represent 3.6% of the population, but they bring 10% of the GDP because they work harder. They have to survive, they spend mostly the money where they are, but they also are responsible for those left back home. So it's a reality. So like we have all, if migration is well governed, we have all to gain also economically. There are also, we had the professor here, economic studies showing that if you have in companies, in the boards, more women or a racially diversified board, the company is more innovative, produces more, tap on a bigger market. So it's a reality. Diversity is fundamental and is beneficial. Exclusion is more costly than inclusion from all perspectives, from a human rights, from socially, economically. So like we have to tap into that, starting from the visa migration. Certainly this report that the African Union started since 2016 showing how far have we gone in terms of liberalization of visa for African within Africa and beyond. It's very important. I'm glad that we have the Minister of Tourism also here advocating with us towards a facilitating movement, but then once you enter regular, you have to be able to stay. ECOWAS, the region where that, like in Abuja, we have the headquarters of ECOWAS, is the first region in the world that started really facilitating movement of people, goods, services. But we have to do more because the establishment is not there yet. It's not that easy to get then permanent residency, an easier way to stay and to contribute to the society within the continent, including ECOWAS, that is advanced. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please celebrate our place. Okay, Mr. Ademola Sanya, you're sitting as president on one of the biggest tourism club in the world. We're talking about Intra-Africa Travel. You have the floor now. I want you to tell every one of us here how SKAL can help for us to travel more, in Africa, because there's that camaraderie when you meet SKAL, what do you call ourselves? SKAL, thank you, in the next country. It's easier to say, oh, Pa. So how does SKAL help to make us travel more amongst ourselves?
Thank you very much. I'm sure everybody was wondering which organization is this SKAL they're mentioning. At the moment, we have quite a couple of people. Thanks, Mr. Oachuku, Mr. Tony, for giving colleagues opportunities to be here. If you want to be a colleague, see me after this discussion. So you have that acronym before your name. Looking at the topic, I sat down and I was looking at it overnight, and I was thinking, the limitations in Africa that hinders tourism, trade, we will be deceiving ourselves if we say we already don't know. Because we do. There's a lot of things Dr. Richard has mentioned. He mentioned something about population, which is always one of the yardstick we use in Nigeria. At every time I do this talk, I'm going to make Nigeria a reference point. You know, normally when you're praying, you use somebody as a reference point in your house to reach your cousins and your brother. And that is what you are used to. So I'm going to use what you're used to. Yeah? I'm going to use Nigeria as a reference point. We already have all the limitations. What SKAL is doing is similar to what government bodies should be doing. At the moment in SKAL, we have about 90 clubs. No, we have about clubs in about 90 countries. And what we've done is that if you call on and if you want to do any business in any region, especially in Africa, you don't have to be there physically. All you need to do is look for a colleague that is existing in that country, and that person will be your back office for whatever plans you have. If you are sending like 30 people to Kenya, for instance, or Mombasa, I don't need to be in Mombasa. I will organize all the tours, and my colleague in Mombasa will do the back office. We share the takings. Now, Dr. Richard mentioned something about how we should open the floodgate. We have a lot of limiting barriers. Our job here is not to talk about those barriers. Our job here is to talk about how do we overcome those barriers. Now, one of the biggest problems we have is what he mentioned, protectionism. It is mine, don't let anybody touch it. And I think that comes from a selfish opinion. If your country is confident, let me ask you, ladies and gentlemen, Rwanda opened the floodgate. Not just Rwanda, I've looked at it. Benin opened it. Seychelles opened it. Now, if today has all the African people gone to Rwanda? Have we all taken over Rwanda? Is their street overpopulated with 200 million Nigerians? Because the floodgate is open, people just go and come. And because they know they can always go back, why do you need to stay? Those are the concepts government needs to understand, that nobody will come and stay in your country when you know I can always come back. It's because of the perception that you will lock the door and you won't let me come again that makes people want to stay in your country. However beautiful it is, your homeland is always more beautiful. Will I go to Scotland and go and wear skirts? No, I won't. I'm not even, the Edo people are even struggling with their own wrapper. Don't talk of me going to Scotland and wearing skirt. Imagine me with the type of leg I have wearing skirt. Now, that's number one. Number two, immigration and custom needs to understand. I went somewhere recently in Nassau, and they have immigration police. And I went to them because I was curious. What is immigration police? He said it's because not everybody can deal with the foreigners. We are trained to deal with the foreigners. We are trained to make sure when they come and they talk to us, whatever they want, they will get within the ambience of the law. And tell me that is not about promoting people coming to their country? If you lose anything and they find it, they will drop it at that police station and you can go back and get it. Even if you're outside the country and you call and they find that stuff, they will UPS it to you or DHL to you and you will take the charges. Thirdly, we have an airport that is not easy to connect. We call ourselves a hub. I ask a question. Tell me who can come into Nigeria and connect, and your bag will connect without you picking it first. You will have to pick the bag. You will have to go through immigration. You will have to go through bag checks. You then go back to checking in and join the queue and start checking in all over again. I'm using Nigeria as a point of reference, not because it is only Nigeria that is happening to. It's happening to all other African countries. We need, like Dr. Richard said, we need a mindset to say we can do this thing together, and we need to open the floodgates. If the whole of Africa opens today, I'm just going to ask you a question, because our job is not just to talk so that you can listen. You need to be involved too. Do you think everybody in one part of Africa will move to the rest of Africa? Which means we will be roving in between. Do you guys remember when we used to have Ankara coming from Monrovia at the international airport? And people will gather money and give it to one person. He goes to Monrovia, buy all the Ankara, and it lands, and they will share it, and they will sell it, and the next person is going again. When the war in Liberia started, I know a friend who lost over $20,000 because his goods, he was expecting his goods, and they couldn't go there anymore. And that war was on for 9 years in Liberia. Those are the kind of simple things that can happen if the barriers are removed from trading within Africa, from tourism within Africa. There's more to talk about, but let me leave you at this moment. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I promised, thank you so much. I promised 30 minutes, so we need to finish right now. So you're going to do a roundup. We're starting from you, Ademola, so we'll just go this way to the ladies. Your last word, parting word for this session, so that we can go to the next session.
My parting word will be, you don't know when the opportunity will come your way. We always look at the people in power as the one that has the fault. But if your mindset is not already aligned now, if the power comes to your hand, you will be worse than the people that are there now. So we need to start a mindset of, what will I do to make it better? Not what are they doing for us? We always want to point to the other person. Let us stop pointing. Do your bit, let me do my bit. Learn the rudiment of what will make things better around you. And then we can move forward. Thank you.
Let's walk for love. Paola.
Thank you. My last word would be really like from the International Organization for Migration, not on, for migration I work for. It's really to promote the fact that migration is here to stay and is a positive. Migrants can be actor of development. Migration needs to be a choice, not a necessity, and needs to really be also taken charge from the governments and people themselves, for people not to fall into the traps of traffickers, smugglers, and risk to be exploited and abused or used as commodities. But it can be a very powerful tool also to love even more this beautiful, fantastic continent of today and tomorrow, and to make sure that people know, exchange, live in different places, and really embrace the power of Africa. Thank you.
My last words will be taken from Work for Love, just like you said. Basically, you said it just hit something in me. My last word will be work for love. Work for love. Meaning we Africans need to begin to appreciate and love each other. From that 2018 that I told you about my experience, I've been to over 15 African countries because I decided to make it an agenda for myself. An agenda for myself. And we Nigerians always say they don't like us. Other African countries don't like us. But traveling within Africa made me to understand is because they don't understand us. People generally oppose or protect themselves from somebody or something they do not know. So I always come and say, okay, rather than say they don't like us, let them get to know you. So, but over the years, Nigerians happen to be part of the Africa that travels more. So our traveling within Africa, especially for my members, when we started the journey, I hear things like, oh, I had always thought South Africans hate us. But Madam President, thank you for bringing me here. I found out that it's not the case. It's just because they don't know who we are. You know, Nigerians generally, we know how we are now. We're hype and everything. So to some of them, they see it as confrontational. They get scared with being ourselves. So the encouragement is not only for us. We already have no problem because naturally we love to travel anyway. For every other African country, let's truly work for love. Tony, thank you very much for what you are doing. But it should go beyond, I'm sorry, it's a good start. It's a good beginning. Let's now go beyond the physical walking to actually traveling within the continent. Because the more we know ourselves, the more it will be easy for us to relate. The ambassador of Namibia is here. And getting to know him, I have traveled in Namibia. When I go to African country, I like traveling by road. I don't do flights from one African country to another. I like traveling by road because I like to explore. When my members went to South Africa, we went by road to Durban. It was, initially they were very skeptical, and I told them, trust me, it is me, trust me, you have a good time. Because I have done it before, and I know it was a wonderful experience, and every member that went loved it. And now, my members are encouraging people to do road as well. When I go to Namibia, I do road from Windhoek to Swakopmund. When I go to Intra-Africa, I try to do road. So please, my message for us Africans, let's work for love in the true sense of it, not in the words. We really don't really love ourselves yet. Hence, even the government is creating that barrier. And ECOWAS, I really don't know what they're doing. I will end with this very small joke. I see it as a joke. Dangote was being interviewed. The ECOWAS headquarters is in Addis Ababa. He was being interviewed. And he was one of the first person that they gave the AU passport. He has it. And he was going for a function in a particular African country. In ECOWAS, the headquarters that gave him the AU passport. He went with one of his directors that had a British passport. He doesn't. At the point of entry, his director entered and they stopped Aliyu Dangote, even with the AU passport. And it was like, we are not ready. You cannot have an AU passport issued in Ethiopia and he could not enter Addis without a visa. Come on, come on, people. Africa, are we ready?
We're ready. We're walking.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please, let's celebrate my panelists.